Right, and what is up, guys? Welcome back again to the Film Chronicles. I have another video for you guys. In today's video, we're going to be going over Child's Play, both the 1988 and the 2019. I would say reimagining because it's not really a remake. It doesn't really follow the same story beats. Um, but anyway, yeah, I just wanted to kind of go over it. I've come to love the 2019 version a lot lately. I watch it a lot on Hulu. It's pretty great. So if you haven't checked it out, I definitely recommend it. It's only a year old, which is kind of crazy to think about. But definitely check it out if you have a Hulu subscription. You can easily watch it. And then this is definitely a video just kind of in line with the season. It is October, we're getting close to Halloween, and there's a lot of good slasher films and also other vast horror films out there. That so I just kind of wanted to jump into Child's Play. I used to watch the first three a lot when I was younger. I definitely think they're really, really good. No hate there. I just think that some of the newer ones that they try to do afterwards don't really do anything. So I really like this reimagining. I think it does a great job at what it wanted to represent. So I'm just gonna dive deep into it, and if you guys are gonna tag along for the ride, I thank you so much. Just make sure that you guys, as always, like, hit that comment button. Write a comment. Maybe recommend another horror movie that you want me to discuss or maybe talk about for another video. That'd be a pretty cool idea. And definitely, subscribe if you haven't already. And then if you are a subscriber, make sure you're sharing this to your friends, to your families, anybody that is a big horror buff or likes any comic book films or anything like that. I definitely would appreciate that. And I definitely thank you guys who are already clicking on this video. So without further ado, let's just get right into this. Alright, so let's start it off with the 1988 trailer. So yeah, this movie came out in 1988. I was born in 1995. I didn't even see the movie till I was at least 6 or 7. So that's a good 12, 13 years after it came out. And it still was iconic as it is today. It was a whole new slasher film. I mean, it is a little silly, right? Like a little doll. But at the end of the day, like, it is something that is a staple during any sort of serial killer type slasher films, and of course, during Halloween, it's definitely a big seller. So it's widely considered a classic, and I still love it to this day. I think it holds up. Um, the effects are still great. The suspense, the acting's really good. Of course, we had Brad Dourif as Charles Lee Ray slash the voice of Chucky. We have Catherine Hicks, who played Karen Barkley, which is Andy's mom. Andy is played by Alex Vincent, who actually made a surprise cameo in, I think, one of the last Chucky movies, Cult of Chucky, if I believe. Or I think his first cameo was in the one that came after Seed of Chucky. Curse of Chucky. There we go, that's the one. We also had Chris Sarandon as Detective Mike Norris, and then we had a couple of other actors that I'm not too familiar with, but that made the movie all the more better. And basically, the plot is as follows: is that we follow a strangler named Charles Lee Ray, and at the point of the film, we catch up to him running away from Detective Mike Norris. He gets cornered in a store, he gets shot, he's pretty badly wounded, and then he proceeds to transfer his soul into a good guy doll, which just so happens to be a doll that Andy is absolutely obsessed with during this time. It's one of the most popular kids' toys. So naturally, Charles Lee Ray does succeed in transferring his soul into the Chucky doll. Um, and then, of course, with Andy's mom being a loving mom who loves her son, who wants to do everything right by him, decides, okay, let me try to get him one. So she makes a deal with like a back alley, out of pocket deal. And this doll just so happens to be the one that Charles Lee Ray ended up transferring his soul into. Crazy enough. So for his birthday, he gets the gift, and then from there, everything starts to go downhill, and pretty fast, unfortunately for Andy. He loses his quote unquote his aunt, which is just his mom's really close friend, and that ends up kind of getting framed onto Andy by the detective, Mike Norris, and his partner, just because they start to find the footprints that match up with the same shoes that Andy's wearing. It's a kid-sized shoe, and they're not going to believe that it's a doll that's going to be going out killing until it starts to happen to them. Over the course of the film, everyone slowly starts to be on the same side and realize, that Andy is telling the truth. And that alone set up the film for some really great moments, some really great kills, and some iconic, lines that were said, by Chucky, voiced by Brad Dourif. A lot of them weren't, explicitly meant to be hilarious, but some of them just ended up being quite, funny. It's just kind of like this black comedy, kind of dark humor going on. So, it's a very iconic film in its own right. And again, it did end up spawning a ton of sequels. It has its own series almost. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I really like Child's Play. I like Child's Play 2. And Child's Play 3 is okay, but I still love it. I kind of just see those three as the main trilogy. I've seen Curse. I've tried to watch Cult. I just couldn't get into it. I know that there's going to be some sort of sci-fi TV series in the works, but it's just something I'm not interested in. I'm not interested in to see the angle that they kind of have. Where Charles Lee Ray is irredeemable. He's a psychopath, and that worked during that time, I would say, just because we were so accustomed to having just serial killers just go at it, just fucking trucking the dreams and stuff like that. But again, I feel like just that alone, I think like that premise of the soul transference and stuff is kind of done and over with. And I just don't see the appeal at this point. But I'm not trying to like diss the Child's Play series at all, or the creator. I believe his name is Don Mancini, and I love it. Again, it's iconic. I own a couple of Child's Play related things in my house, so it's not like I'm trying to hate, but I just feel like at this point maybe they should just let the movies be as they are. But that's just my 2 cents. With that being said, without Child's Play from 1988, we wouldn't have a reimagining. And I keep saying reimagining because I don't think this is a reboot or a remake. It doesn't keep the elements of Child's Play 1988, such as the voodoo element, which I think is a big giveaway. It also doesn't try to make it apparent that there's like an actual human killer that does that. It's just its own. It's an AI that has some faulty software going on, and that it doesn't have its same safety inhibitors that all the other models would have. So it's kind of interesting take because there's innocence there, since it's kind of quote unquote a new life, so to speak. It's an artificial intelligence meant to be a companion, and usually it has safety parameters. But if you've seen the movie, and if you haven't, I'm sorry, spoilers, but there's going to be scenes playing that are going to show elements from the new movie. So if you need to click away, I totally understand. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I am going to be showing clips from the movie. So here we go. So there was quite a while till they decided to actually greenlight a reboot and kind of develop a story that does not have to do with the Charles Lee Ray story or Don Mancini, since there was a rights issues going on with the character creation and stuff like that. I'm not really going to get into that. I'm just going to talk about the new movie. So it was actually directed by someone named Lars Klevberg, who I'm assuming that this was going to be his first film that he directed, but it was also produced by Seth Grahame-Smith, who produced the recent It movies, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. And the screenplay was written by a Tyler Burton Smith, who's actually kind of an up-and-coming screenwriter, I'm assuming. He's attached to write a script for the film adaptation for the Five Nights at Freddy's series, and then he's also developing a sequel to Kung Fury. Kung Fury is one of those underground movies that's actually just really good, really funny for what it is. So I was excited to see these names attached when I saw this trailer. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to see it in theater, but like I said earlier, I did catch it on Hulu a couple times, and I just can't help but love it every single time, just because it introduces new elements to the story of Child's Play and how it could still work with the Chucky doll. It's actually funny because Andy in this movie actually tries to name his doll Han Solo, but the doll, since it has some faulty software due to a employee who decides to turn off all the safety parameters, ends up doing that and then killing himself. So no one knows that he even did this, or would even suspect that he had the opportunity to do this before he killed himself. So it's pretty crazy, and it's pretty interesting because like I was saying, it brings in new elements while also taking away old elements, such as the whole soul transference. It kind of grounds it in this way that this is a real thing that could kind of happen with technology, where if it's not up to spec, up to par, there could be a lot of consequences. I mean, not something in the vein of this. I know there's no such thing as a murder bot, but I mean, that is something that has been talked about with the future of AI, just over the horizon, within the next coming decade, I would say. So it puts an interesting perspective on the whole narrative now going forward with the story of a boy's doll losing his shit. And like I said, this employee, with the treatment that he's been under and presumably all this other stuff that he's going through, he does all these removals of all the safety inhibitors, the proper speech inhibitors and such as stuff like that. And this doll, gets sent, and it ends up being noted as faulty, so that it ends up being sold to Andy's mom. Just kind of similar to how the original movie did it, where she ran into while in the original movie she ran into a stranger on the street with the doll, but in this movie she ran into a employee and convinced him to just mark it as lost or damaged, so that way she could have it for Andy. And then from there on, we see Andy interacting with his doll. He tries to name it Han Solo, but in a funny scene, the doll kind of, freaks out since it's all messed up, and then ends up just calling himself Chucky for the rest of the movie. So it's pretty on the nose, and it's, it has these little Easter eggs in it, and it just works so well. And then with this technology, being a learning companion, and like I said before, Chucky has that innocence about him. He's still learning all these new things. He's learning his surroundings, interactions, and stuff like that. And it's really sweet, and it actually really works, and it gives you a whole different dynamic between Chucky and Andy. Whereas in the 1988 Child's Play, Chucky was obviously possessed by Charles Lee Ray and just, psychopathic, wanting to kill and just possess Andy's body and live forever, so to speak, since he would be in a younger body. But in this movie, we have a different dynamic where it starts off much more sweet, and it's much more obvious that Andy in this movie, kind of needs friends, because he's feeling isolated and alone, being with a single mom who probably has to work more than 40 hours a week in this narrative. And it's just awesome. It's fresh and it's different, and it's kind of upsetting that this movie got such a lot of flack just for trying to do something a little different than what the creator wanted to do. And again, I'm not trying to disrespect Mancini, but I just think that at this day and age, like, you should be open to interpretations of your material. It's almost a sign of respect that they acknowledge it, but they want to see what else they can do within that universe, that they still want to play with elements in that universe. And I don't think that's something that you should deny or try to take away from filmmakers. And but regardless of that, this movie still did really well. We had Aubrey Plaza, obviously, as you guys have seen, as Andy's mom. We have this newcomer who plays Andy, really phenomenal actor. I think he did a really good job as Andy, and showed a lot of different ranges. And then we also had Mark Hamill voicing Chucky, funny enough, which is awesome. And his voice for Chucky is really good. It's funny. It's very creepy at times. It's also very, like I said, funny at times. And there's good, there's good moments in this movie where it doesn't need to be overly on the top killing just to prove itself to be a horror. And it does that really well. There's a good dynamic going on throughout the movie. Then we also had Brian Tyree Henry as Detective Mike Norris this time around, which was really cool. The one thing I would say is I kind of just wish we got more of him. His presence in the movie was pretty good. I liked his interactions with Andy a lot. I just kind of wish to see more of him interrogating, maybe questioning Andy, since it's kind of obvious that he has a hunch that it could possibly be Andy, much similar to how the 1988 version played out with that Detective Morris. But like I said, with that being said, Brian brought, a good performance, and it's funny and it's pretty relaxed, and it helps the movie flow a lot better, I would say, for sure. And then as we see in some of these scenes over the course of the film, Chucky starts to lose that innocence, because remember, he doesn't have the same violence inhibitors, he doesn't have the same language barriers. He's open to absorbing and learning all this information, so seeing stuff that he doesn't quite understand causes that reaction, a reaction of like not understanding and not knowing how to deal with something, and that's a very human aspect. And that's something that I was saying before. It's a different dynamic that they brought to the table with this version of Chucky. And that being said, it makes it all the more hard to watch as Andy realizes that he has to get rid of Chucky. He has to kill him at all costs because he's gonna hurt more people. And at this point, Chucky's too far gone. And we wouldn't have gotten that element with the original franchise as it went. I know that in Cult or Curse, one of the two, I can't remember, sorry, but I know in one of those two they try to kind of redeem Charles Lee Ray and make him kind of a victim of a sense, and like a serial strangler because of his surroundings and because of what transpired with him. But I don't think that works. I think this angle works a lot more, having a true innocent being that was really a result of his environment and his surroundings and his interactions with other people. And I think that worked really, really well for this movie. For me, it's a really good sequel, and I think it does well with the source material, and it's as respectful as it possibly can be, while also trying to branch out and do something new and something fresh and different. And again, like I said earlier, it has really funny elements, it has really good horror elements, it has a lot of suspense, and there's a lot of good, little things in the movie that help, make it really work, especially with Chucky, Mark Hamill's voice, Andy and his mom's relationship, and the age shift and how that dynamic creates something new too. It just all works really well for this movie, and I can't recommend it enough to you guys. And I'm not going to get into more details or anything like that. I want you guys to see this. I just wanted to talk about it, in celebration of the coming day, which is going to be Halloween, of course. And we're going to do some more slashers / horror films. So, let me know what you guys want to see in the comments, or maybe want me to tackle. Just comment it and I'll go ahead and, we'll talk about it. And maybe it'll be that video. So let me know, guys. And thank you again so much for watching this video and coming by the Film Chronicles. We'll be back at it again with another video very, very soon. And if you guys watch this video all the way through, thank you guys so much for listening to my ramblings and my points and discussions. So again, thank you guys, and have a good one. Take it easy.